The war started without warning. One moment Earth's skies were clear, the next they were filled with burning streaks of alien ships entering the atmosphere. Cities panicked, militaries scrambled, and the world seemed to change in hours. For Alex Carter, a young human officer, the sudden invasion wasn't just an attack, it was the start of something no one could have imagined. Alex had been stationed at a remote defense outpost when the alarm screamed. His commanding officer barked orders, but the enemy's weapons tore through their communications. All Alex could see on the horizon were columns of smoke and the flashes of orbital strikes. The enemy wasn't here to negotiate. They were here to dominate. Within days, Earth's resistance collapsed in key cities. The alien fleets, sleek and impossibly fast, controlled the skies. People whispered about their leader, a green-skinned queen who never showed mercy. Rumors spread that she chose her targets personally, marking entire regions for destruction. Alex didn't believe such stories until the day her army reached his base. The attack was relentless. Plasma fire lit up the night, and every defensive turret Alex had trained on was destroyed within minutes. He found himself dragging wounded soldiers to cover, choking on smoke and dust. Then, as if by fate, the battlefield went silent. The alien soldiers stopped firing. And through the haze, she appeared. She was unlike any enemy he had imagined. Her skin was a luminous emerald, her long silver hair braided with golden clasps. She wore armor that shimmered under the broken sunlight, and her eyes sharp, intelligent. Unyielding met his from across the ruined field. She walked past her own warriors, stopping just a few feet away from him. For a moment, neither spoke. Alex's heart raced, his mind searching for words. The stories had painted her as a ruthless conqueror, yet here she was, calm and almost curious. Then, without breaking eye contact, she gave an order in her own language. The alien soldiers lowered their weapons, leaving only silence between them. "You are human," she said in surprisingly fluent English. Her voice was melodic, but there was steel beneath it. Alex nodded, unsure if speaking would be wise. "You fight well," she continued, "but poorly for survival." It wasn't an insult. It was a statement, as if she was weighing his worth. Alex managed a nervous smile, blurting out without thinking, "Will anyone even marry me after this mess?" The words were foolish, yet they hung in the air like a challenge. Her expression shifted, her lips curving into the faintest smile. She stepped closer, lowering her voice until only he could hear. "Maybe me," she whispered. Alex stood frozen, unsure if he had heard her correctly. The battlefield around them still smelled of smoke and burning metal. The alien soldiers kept their distance, their strange armor glinting in the light. She, however, didn't take her eyes off him. The way she spoke those two words felt heavier than any weapon pointed at him. Her presence was unsettling, yet magnetic. Every step she took seemed deliberate, each movement filled with control. Alex knew he should be thinking about escape or resistance, but his mind kept circling back to her voice. It wasn't just what she had said, it was how she said it. There was something dangerous behind that softness. The alien queen turned her gaze to one of her officers. She spoke in her native tongue, a sharp, flowing language that Alex could not understand. Yet, from the reaction of her warriors, he knew. She had given an order. The soldiers lowered their stance but kept their weapons in hand. It was as if she had claimed him for some purpose, only she understood. Without warning, she reached out and touched his chin, lifting his head slightly. Her hand was cool against his skin, her armor clicking softly as she moved. "Your world is broken," she said calmly. "But you may not be." Alex's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know if she meant it as a compliment or a warning. Tension between them was broken when a sharp explosion echoed in the distance. Both their heads turned toward the sound. A column of smoke rose from the hills. The queen's eyes narrowed, and she spoke to her warriors again. This time, a small group broke away and moved quickly toward the source of the noise. Alex realized they were protecting him as much as they were guarding her. He tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. "Why me?" he finally asked. She tilted her head, studying him like he was some puzzle she had yet to solve. "Because you are interesting," she said simply. "And because I decide who lives." Her tone was not cruel, but it left no doubt about her authority. Before Alex could respond, she stepped closer, so near he could see faint glowing lines running under her skin. They pulsed gently, like veins of light. She seemed to be testing his reaction, watching if he would flinch or stand his ground. He didn't move. That seemed to please her. "You may have worth beyond your fighting," she murmured. The Queen turned abruptly and began walking toward the massive alien transport at the edge of the field. She didn't look back, but her soldiers gestured for Alex to follow. His instincts screamed at him to run, yet he found himself walking after her. Something told him that refusing her now would mean never walking anywhere again. Inside the transport, the air was different. It smelled faintly of some floral scent, and the walls shimmered with faint blue patterns. Alien warriors moved with silent precision, their eyes briefly glancing at him before returning to their duties. The Queen sat upon a raised platform, her armor catching the light as if it were alive. She gestured for him to come closer. As Alex stepped forward, he realized his hands were shaking. He had faced enemy fire without fear, yet here, in front of her, his heartbeat was pounding in. His ears, she noticed. "You fear me," she said softly. "That is good. But fear is not the same as weakness." Her words felt like they were cutting through more than just the air. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "You will travel with me now," she said. "There is much I want to know, and much you must learn." The tone in her voice left no room for negotiation. Alex opened his mouth to protest, but then he saw the faint smile again, the same one from before. It was both a promise and a threat, and deep down, Alex realized he wanted to know which one it truly was. The transport lifted off the ground with a smooth hum. Through the small viewing slit, Alex saw the battlefield shrinking beneath them. Smoke curled into the sky from shattered buildings, and scattered human soldiers ran for cover. The alien Queen sat silently on her platform, her eyes fixed on something far beyond the horizon. Alex couldn't tell if she was deep in thought or watching for threats. The interior of the ship felt alive. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were part of some breathing creature. Strange patterns shimmered across the surfaces, shifting in colors he had never seen before. Alien warriors stood like statues, their armor reflecting the soft light. None of them spoke to him, but he could feel their watchful eyes. They were not guarding the Queen from him, they were guarding him for the Queen. Alex tried to measure his situation. He was clearly a prisoner, yet he hadn't been restrained. He could move freely inside a limited space, though every time he took a step, at least 2 guards adjusted their stance. The Queen had not spoken to him since boarding, but her occasional glance felt like a question she had not yet asked. When the ship finally landed, Alex expected to see another battlefield. Instead, he stepped out into a vast alien city. Towers of glass-like crystal rose into the sky, glowing faintly from within. Walkways curved gracefully between buildings, and strange winged creatures flew overhead. The air was warm and carried a faint, sweet scent. For a moment, he almost forgot this was the home of his enemy. The Queen led the way through wide, gleaming streets. Alien citizens paused to look at her, bowing their heads as she passed. Some looked at Alex with curiosity, others with open suspicion. He felt out of place, like a single wrong move could start a riot. Yet, as they walked, no one tried to stop him. The Queen's presence was enough to keep the city calm. They entered a towering palace made of the same glowing crystal. Inside, the air grew cooler, and faint music drifted through the halls. Alien servants moved quickly, but silently, keeping their eyes lowered. The Queen walked ahead without slowing, leading Alex into a chamber that overlooked the entire city. From here, he could see the strange beauty of the alien world spread out before him. She turned to face him. "Do you hate what you see?" she asked. Alex hesitated. "I don't know," he said honestly. "It's beautiful, but it's also the place that destroyed my home." Her expression didn't change, but there was something in her eyes, something almost human. "War makes beauty seem like a lie," she said quietly. "But sometimes, beauty survives war." Her words lingered in the air between them. She stepped closer, the faint glow under her skin catching the light. "You will learn our ways," she said. "You will see more than what you have been told." Alex frowned. "And if I refuse?" She tilted her head, almost smiling. "Then you will remain interesting for a shorter time." He couldn't tell if she was joking or threatening him, but either way, it made his pulse quicken. A sudden sound broke the moment, a sharp chime from a crystal panel on the wall. One of her officers entered quickly, speaking in their language. The Queen's eyes narrowed, and she glanced at Alex. Without a word, she gestured for him to follow her again. They moved through winding corridors until they reached an armory, filled with alien weapons unlike anything he had ever seen. She picked up a slender, curved blade that seemed to hum faintly in the air. "This is yours now," she said, handing it to him. Alex looked at the weapon, confused. "Why give this to me?" Her answer came with a steady gaze. "Because you may need to defend me before this day ends." The weight of her words sank into him, and for the first time, he felt the war wasn't just between their peoples. It was now inside this palace, and somehow, he was already part of it. The alien blade felt light in Alex's hands, yet there was a strange weight to it that had nothing to do with metal. Its edge shimmered faintly, almost as if it were alive. The Queen watched him hold it, her sharp eyes following every small movement. She did not explain how to use it, yet he felt she expected him to learn quickly. A low vibration passed through the palace floor. The alien guards stiffened, their weapons raised. The Queen's expression hardened. She turned to one of her officers who spoke urgently in their language. Alex couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Danger was close. The Queen looked at him, her voice calm but firm. "Stay near me," she said. They moved swiftly through the corridors, her guards forming a protective wall around them. The palace's crystal walls reflected flashes of movement outside. Alex caught glimpses of alien soldiers rushing into position, their armor gleaming under the strange light. Somewhere in the distance, a sharp explosion rattled the air. The Queen did not slow her pace. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the city. What Alex saw made his stomach tighten. Several alien warships were descending toward the capital, but their markings were different from those he had seen before. The Queen's jaw tightened. "Rebels," she muttered. The word was in English this time, and it carried a tone of contempt mixed with caution. The first blast struck one of the outer towers, sending shards of crystal raining down onto the streets below. Citizens scattered while soldiers tried to push them toward safety. The Queen raised a hand, and her personal guard formed a tighter circle around her. Alex stood inside that circle, gripping the alien blade, unsure if he should be relieved or terrified. An enemy ship roared overhead, firing again. The shockwave knocked Alex off balance, but one of the guards caught his arm and pulled him upright. The Queen didn't look at him, her focus entirely on the approaching threat. "They will try to reach me," she said, "and you will make sure they don't." Her words were not a request, they were a command. The rebels landed on the palace. Steps in a flash of light and smoke. Their armor was darker, more jagged, and their weapons glowed with a harsh red energy. They moved fast, cutting down loyal guards who tried to block their advance. Alex's grip tightened on the blade. He had fought battles before, but never in the heart of an alien city, and never at the side of its ruler. The Queen stepped forward. drawing her own weapon, a longer curved blade that burned with a pale blue glow. Her eyes locked onto the rebel leader as if nothing else in the world mattered. Alex felt the pull of her presence even now. She was both a target and the most dangerous fighter on the field. Without another word, she leapt into the fray. Alex followed, the noise of battle filling his ears. The alien blade hummed in his hands, guiding his strikes. The rebels were fierce, but they seemed unprepared for his speed. He moved between the queen and her attackers, striking where the armor was weakest. Each time he blocked a blow meant. For her, she glanced at him for only a fraction of a second before cutting down another enemy. The fight pushed them toward the grand hall. More rebels poured in through shattered windows, and the sound of clashing steel echoed through the crystal walls. Alex's arms ached, but he didn't slow. The queen fought like a storm, her every strike precise and deadly. And yet, despite her skill, she never let him drift too far from her side. When the last rebel fell, silence returned in a wave. The palace guards quickly moved to secure the area, dragging away the wounded and sealing the entrances. The queen stood still, her blade lowering slowly. Her eyes met Alex's, and for the first time since he had met her, she looked almost pleased. "You learn quickly," she said, and Alex knew she wasn't talking about the blade. The queen's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex was breathing hard, his arms sore from the fight. Around them, the guards were cleaning the battlefield inside the palace, removing weapons and checking for hidden explosives. The queen sheathed her glowing blade with a smooth motion, her eyes never leaving his face. "You have earned a place here," she said at last. He didn't know whether to feel honored or worried. The rebels had been skilled, ruthless, and clearly determined to reach her. That meant the threat wasn't over. Alex knew enough about war to understand that one failed attack rarely ended a conflict. The queen seemed to sense his thoughts. "They will come again," she said calmly. "But next time we will be ready." She led him through the palace halls, the soft glow of the crystal walls casting shifting patterns on their faces. Servants bowed deeply as she passed, their eyes flicking to Alex with quiet curiosity. It was clear they had never seen a human here before. The queen's stride was steady and confident, as though the attack had been nothing more than an interruption. They entered a chamber filled with strange symbols carved into the floor. In the center stood a table made of black stone, its surface covered in maps and holographic displays. Alien officers were gathered around it, speaking in quick, urgent tones. When the queen stepped forward, they all fell silent. She pointed to a glowing section of the map and began giving orders. Alex didn't understand the language, but he recognized the look on her face. It was the same look he had seen on human commanders, sharp focus, no hesitation. When she finished, she turned to him. "You will train with my guard," she said. "You will learn our weapons, our tactics, and our language." He wanted to ask why, but something in her gaze told him the answer would not change. Training began the next morning. The palace courtyard was cleared of onlookers, leaving only the queen's elite guard and their weapons. Alex was handed a practice version of the alien blade, lighter but still dangerous. The guards did not hold back. They tested his speed, his balance, and his endurance. Every time he stumbled, they forced him to get up again. Hours passed before the queen appeared at the edge of the courtyard. She watched in silence, her expression unreadable. Alex's arms burned, sweat dripping down his face. Still, he kept moving, blocking strikes and returning them when he could. By the time the sun dipped low, his muscles felt like lead. The queen finally stepped forward and called the training to an end. "You are stronger than I thought," she said as they walked back inside. "But strength alone will not keep you alive." Her voice was calm, but he could feel the weight of her words. She was preparing him for something more than palace defense. He didn't know if that meant another rebel attack or something far worse. That night, Alex was given a chamber of his own within the palace. The walls glowed faintly, and the air was warm and still. He lay on the strange bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the battles and the queen's voice. Part of him wanted to believe she saw him as more than just a useful fighter. Another part warned him that her interest could be dangerous. Just before sleep took him, there was a soft knock at the door. He opened it to find the queen standing there alone. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her presence filling the small space. "You wonder why I keep you close," she said, her tone unreadable. "The answer is simple. You make me think of possibilities my people have forgotten." And for the first time, Alex realized her war might not be only against her enemies. It might also be against her own world. Alex didn't speak right away. The queen's words stirred something in him, though he couldn't decide if it was admiration or caution. She moved to the window of his chamber, looking out over the glowing city. "My people have become too certain of themselves," she said. "They believe they can crush any threat without changing their ways." Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "And you think I can change that?" She turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. "You already have," she replied. "In the short time I have known you, you have shown me that humans fight not just to win, but to protect. My people see war as a game of dominance. You remind me that it can be more than that." The words caught him off guard. He had never thought of himself as a symbol of anything. Yet here he was, standing in the chamber of an alien queen who saw him as a spark for something greater. "If I'm that important," he said, "then the rebels will try harder to remove me." She gave the faintest of smiles. "Then we will make them fail." The next days were filled with relentless training. Alex learned to wield alien weapons as if they were extensions of his own body. He practiced in the palace courtyard, under the sharp eyes of the queen's guards. They pushed him past exhaustion, forcing him to react faster, strike harder, and adapt to attacks he had never faced before. The queen often watched from a distance. Each evening, she summoned him to discuss strategy. Together, they studied maps of her empire, marking rebel strongholds and possible weak points. He shared human tactics, and she listened with an intensity that made him believe she truly valued his insight. It was strange to feel like an ally in the heart of enemy territory, but stranger still to feel that his presence there might matter. On the fourth night, alarms echoed through the palace. The sound was sharp and urgent, different from the call to battle he had heard before. The queen entered his chamber in full armor, her blade already drawn. "They're here," she said. "And this time, they know you are with me." There was no fear in her tone, only certainty. The corridors were chaos. Guards rushed to their positions while palace servants fled to hidden chambers. Alex stayed close to the queen as they moved toward the main gates. Through the open archway, he could see the rebel forces advancing in tight formations. Their armor gleamed black under the city's light, and their weapons glowed with the same red energy he remembered from the first attack. The queen raised her blade, and her guards surged forward to meet the enemy. Alex joined the fight without hesitation. He blocked a strike aimed at the queen's side, countering with a quick slash that forced the attacker back. Around them, the battle raged with blinding speed. The sound of clashing steel and roaring energy blasts filled the air, but Alex kept his focus on her safety. A rebel commander broke through the guard line, charging straight for the queen. Alex intercepted him, their blades locking in a shower of sparks. The commander was stronger, but Alex was faster. He ducked low, sweeping the alien's legs before driving him back with a flurry of strikes. The queen finished the fight with a single precise blow that left the commander on the ground. The rebels began to retreat, their formation breaking under the combined force of the queen's guard and Alex's relentless defense. As the last of them fled into the shadows, the Queen lowered her blade. She turned to him, her breathing steady despite the fight. "You have proven yourself again," she said. "Not just as a warrior, but as someone I can trust." And in that moment, Alex realized that trust from her was worth more than any victory on the battlefield. The Queen's trust weighed on Alex more than any weapon he had carried. It was not something given lightly, and he knew it could be taken away just as quickly. In the days after the second rebel attack, the palace felt different. Guards were doubled at every entrance, and patrols swept the city streets without rest. The Queen herself seemed quieter, more thoughtful, as if she were holding back a decision. One evening, she summoned him to the same high chamber that overlooked the city. The lights below shimmered against the glass-like walls, casting soft colors across her armor. "There is something you must know," she began. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held an unusual weight. "The rebels are not my only enemies. There are those within the council who would see me replaced. They will use any excuse, and you are an easy target." Alex understood immediately. His presence in the palace was not just unusual, it was dangerous for her reputation. "Then why keep me here?" he asked. She turned toward the window, watching the city lights. "Because the change I need cannot come from within," she said. "It must come from someone who sees this world differently. And that is you." The admission caught him off guard. He had thought of himself as a soldier, maybe an ally at best, but not as a catalyst for change. "If they come for you," he said, "I'll stand in their way." She looked at him then, and for the first time, there was no trace of the Queen in her eyes, only the woman. "I know," she replied. The following morning brought troubling news. Scouts reported that the rebels had allied with one of the Queen's political rivals. Together, they were gathering a force large enough to strike directly at the palace. The Queen called a meeting with her commanders, her tone sharper than Alex had ever heard. "We will not wait for them to come," she declared. "We will take the fight to them." Plans were drawn quickly. The attack would be led by her elite guard, with Alex among them. It was a risk to bring him into enemy territory, but she insisted. "They will expect me," she told him later. "They will not expect you." Her confidence in him felt like both a weapon and a burden. He knew failure would cost more than his own life. The march to the rebel stronghold was tense. Alien soldiers moved with silent precision, their armor blending into the dark landscape. Alex kept his blade ready, scanning the shadows for movement. The Queen rode at the front, her presence a steady anchor for the troops behind her. Even in the heart of enemy land, she carried herself like the ruler of an unbroken empire. When they reached the outskirts of the stronghold, the Queen signaled for silence. The fortress rose ahead of them, jagged and black against the dim sky. Lights glowed faintly along its walls, and the air carried the metallic scent of charged weapons. Alex felt his pulse quicken. This was not a defensive battle. This was an invasion, and there would be no retreat. The first wave of fighting erupted at the gates. Energy blasts tore through the night, lighting the field in flashes of red and blue. Alex moved alongside the Queen, cutting down enemies who broke through the guard line. Each strike of his blade felt sharper, more certain. He was no longer fighting to survive, he was fighting to protect her. Inside the fortress, the fighting was even fiercer. Rebels defended every corridor, forcing them to advance step by step. The Queen's commands cut through the noise, guiding her soldiers with precision. At one turn, a rebel fighter lunged at her from the shadows, but Alex intercepted the attack, driving the enemy back with a swift counter. The Queen's glance of approval lasted only a moment, but it fueled him forward. When they finally reached the central chamber, the rebel leader awaited them. His armor was heavier than the others, and his weapon burned with a deep crimson light. "This ends tonight," the Queen said, her voice echoing against the stone walls. Alex stepped to her side without hesitation, ready to face whatever came next. The rebel leader stepped forward, his eyes locked on the Queen. His voice was deep and sharp, speaking in their alien tongue. Alex couldn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. The tone was enough to know it was a challenge. The queen raised her blade without hesitation, the pale blue light casting long shadows on the walls around them. The fight began with a clash of energy and steel. The rebel leader struck hard, his crimson blade sending sparks across the chamber. The queen met every blow with precision, her movements sharp and controlled. Alex circled to the side, keeping his own blade ready, waiting for the moment he would be needed. The air was heavy with the sound of metal striking metal. The leader pushed the queen back a step, his strength forcing her to shift her stance. Alex saw an opening and moved in, striking at the leader's side. The blow was deflected, but it gave the queen the chance to press forward again. Together, they began to turn the tide, their strikes landing faster and with greater force. The leader's movements grew more desperate. Then the leader feinted toward the queen before spinning to attack Alex. The strike came fast, the red blade whistling through the air. Alex blocked, the impact sending a shock through his arms. The queen moved in behind the rebel, her own blade slicing across his weapon arm. The red glow of his blade flickered and died, leaving him unarmed. The queen stood over him, her breathing steady. The rebel looked up at her, defiance still in his eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice that carried the weight of her rule, she declared that the rebellion was over. The rebel leader's shoulders sank, and the remaining rebels lowered their weapons. The queen had won without needing to end his life. When the fortress was secured, the queen's army began dismantling the rebel stronghold. Alex stood beside her, watching as prisoners were escorted away. The air was filled with the sounds of orders being shouted and weapons being collected. The queen turned to him, her eyes softer now. "You have fought beside me in the heart of danger," she said. "You have done more than I asked, and more than I expected." They returned to the palace under the watch of a silent city. Word of the queen's victory spread quickly, and the people gathered in the streets to watch her pass. Alex walked at her side, his presence drawing curious stares from every corner. It no longer felt strange to him. He had fought for this place, and in some way, it now felt like part of his world. That night, the queen called him to the high chamber one last time. The city lights glowed beneath them, and the air was calm. She stood close to the window, the pale light tracing the outline of her figure. "Do you remember what you asked me when we first met?" she said. Alex thought back to that strange moment on the battlefield, the foolish joke he had made, and he nodded. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "If you asked me again now," she said, "my answer would be the same." Her voice was steady, but there was a warmth in it he had not heard before. Alex felt the weight of everything they had endured, the battles, the trust, the unspoken bond between them. It all led to this moment. He stepped closer, the city's glow reflecting in both their eyes. "Will anyone even marry me?" he asked again, his voice quiet but certain. The queen smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes and softened her entire face. She stepped closer, her hand resting lightly against his chest. "Maybe me," she whispered once more. And this time, Alex didn't freeze.